Committee meeting. My name is Ryan Austin. I am the District 1 Alderman and the Chairperson of the Public Works Committee. We'll do a quick introductions if we'll go around the room, starting to my right.
Nick Dooms, Design Engineer.
Paul Vollert, Public Works Superintendent.
Dean Veneman, Alderman, District 2.
Matt Zacher, Alderman, District 3.
District 4, Tom Realm, Alderperson.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2, review engineering and street department activities report. Nick?
Okay, so engineering report. So Joe's kind of championing the whole transportation utility, so I'll just briefly cover that based on my conversation with him. But from what it sounds like we're on track for July billing. And then it sounds like R.A. Smith has approximately 60 parcels left to go over and categorize and try to determine the amount of trip counts for. Moving on to permits, we have, this time of the year, March and April, with construction ramping up and the weather turning, a fair amount of excavating right-of-way permits coming in. New developments happening, so we're starting to see a lot of that work start here. Let's see. So for our projects for this year that we'll be starting city projects, we have a lot of DNR and state permits coming in for our Fremont project, 9th Avenue and Smith and Cherry. Those are starting to come in from the DNR. We also are working with the DNR on the levee project along 2nd Avenue. We're working with them to try to obtain a Chapter 30 permit for some riprap work we're doing along the riverbank there. So we're tweaking our plans, working with the DNR, trying to obtain that permit as well. We'll probably have that in the next week or two from what it looks. And then, so Smith and Cherry, we started construction on that on Monday. Our crew's out there doing underground work along Cherry Street between First and Smith. Last night we did a walkthrough with residents, pre-construction meeting, to kind of answer their questions and go through some of the project particulars and how it's going to affect their property. So we did that last night. Sewer lining. So our sewer lining contract has been rewarded. We have Visu Sewer in town. They are doing, sewer lining along West Jackson Street and kind of throughout town. For the most part, their work has been pretty intermittent. They've been mainly prepping sewer mains to do the lining, and that'll probably start a couple weeks, about a week and a half from now. They'll start lining the sewer on West Jackson Street. So that's work that's coming up. We're trying to get that work done before the big DOT project along West Jackson starts. So that's kind of the big push right now, but we're not anticipating any conflicts with any of that work. Survey work we've started. So Oak Street we're all done with. We've started design on that actually, but 9th Street, we've got approximately 25% of that survey work done. And Shorewood Terrace, same thing. We started our survey work along there, and so the idea being that as soon as we're done with design on Oak Street, we can start designing 9th Street and Shorewood Terrace as well for next year. So I think that pretty much takes care of engineering.
Okay, thank you. Everyone should have received a handout. I apologize for not having it in with the packet. We were on vacation out of state, so apologize for that. There's an error in the handwritten that you're given, and also probably in the one that was sent electronically. Garbage collection for the month of March was 441.91 tons. 2021, instead of saying 29.34 tons, it should be 429.34 tons. So again, pretty consistent with what we've been in the past. Recycling is a little bit lower than 2021, 99.29 tons. Compared to 2021, we were at roughly 116 tons. As Nick had mentioned, our construction project, we started on Monday. Started on the Cherry and Smith Street project. We're doing the storm sewer and sanitary in the first block. We're at currently right now between First and Smith. And then the water main, that's kind of critical to get in so that we can run temporary water to the other properties that's kind of strung out there. So for the other phases, we'll be able to run off of that hydrant. We've taken delivery of all of our pipe for the year. No hiccups with that. Obviously, for those that work in the industry know that can be some supply shortages and stuff like that. There has been some issue with water main, but that's coming now. They didn't honor their pricing that they did in December. They're adding fuel surcharges now to things, so they wouldn't make the delivery without paying the surcharge. So otherwise, in the month of March, we've had some minor snow and icing events that we've dealt with, nothing major this year, which will allow us to carry over roughly 1,600 tons of salt from this year into next year, which is typically what we do. We held our OSHA 10 training. We held also a rigging and chaining, proper lifting technique with chains and stuff like that. We also held our biannual forklift training. The forklift training was done with in-house staff that we had trained last year to be trainers. We had some new staff this year that did not have the Vista chainsaw training last year, so we had the trainer come in again and had just shy of a dozen people go through that. And then we also had a vendor come in and do competent training or competent person training for proper trenching and shoring and stuff like that. So, and then we've also reviewed our confined space policy and did our annual review of that and training that's associated with that. So we should be all completed with our training that we have to do on an annual basis. With the warm weather, we did start to do cleanup of the town. And then, of course, it snows a couple times afterwards, so we'll have to go through and just do some spot areas and areas that the snowbanks weren't completely gone. We're starting to fix snowplow damage in the green areas, and then we fixed the mailboxes that we had damaged throughout the year. We did some removals along the East Riverview Expressway from the hospital up to Lincoln Street, where the windstorm had gone through in December there and damaged all of the spruce trees. And then just constantly filling potholes. It's the season for potholes right now, and unfortunately, the age of our infrastructure, that's what we get to spend a lot of time on right now. Sign shop, we've been pretty steadily attacking the sign ordinance that we reviewed in, I believe it was February. So starting to switch all of that stuff over and eliminate some of the signs where we can. Part of our annual sign maintenance, we removed 25, 24-inch stop signs and replaced them with the current standard, which is 30-inch stop signs. Sometimes we have to extend the pole and things like that, so it can be a little bit extra work. We had some people do some graffiti on the Highway 73 overpass out there off of George Road that we just put a temporary fix on because it was not appealing to the people that were driving by. And then we finished doing any of the Christmas decorations removals that we haven't had done. The shop was busy doing our annual, or not annual, but just doing large vehicle maintenance work, warranty work on police cars and our own vehicles that we have, and going through that. One of the big things that we weren't planning on is we had a 14-year-old loader that the sleeve on one of the cylinders let go, and so we had to completely replace an engine, but that was covered by our equipment replacement fund. So, but once again, we weren't planning on that. For those that have, or for you that remember, in, I believe it was January or February, we approved our equipment replacement fund. Just an update on that. One of our items was to replace a 1985 grader with something that was newer. Originally, I had budgeted $125,000 to replace that machine, and kind of had one eyed up, and so once it was approved, we reviewed local vendors and things like that again, and we were able to find a machine that was 1 year newer than what we were originally planning on, for $24,000 less than what we were originally planning on spending. So we had a couple operators, and then one of the supervisors went to 3 different locations to look at it. This one was owned by a township over in Eau Claire or Chippewa County. Same person ran it for the whole entire time that it was on there, and it's in very good shape. So we haven't taken delivery on it yet. They had some things to clean up on it for us. But we're in the positive on that. We've came up with, in my opinion, a better solution and less money. So same thing. The other item that we had was a new construction trailer for our construction crew. Sent 2 guys to go and look at different alternatives. We originally had budgeted $28,000 for it based off of the estimate that the vendor that we ended up buying from. He lowered his price from $28,000 to $26,500 on the same trailer that he was, gave us a price on originally. So same thing, we had a net increase of stuff that stays into our equipment replacement fund there too. And then the last thing I have is that we did lose an employee here the last month that left us to go to a local municipal utility company. And he was with us for, I believe, 6 to 8 months. And he had left just because he had an opportunity for increased wages or whatever. So if you see the advertisement on the HR page, that's what that position is for. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the activities reports? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 3, review and consider proposals for environmental services related to West Jackson Street and 9th Ave North reconstruction projects. Nick?
So, so Jackson Street, West Jackson Street, and 9th Avenue, we are anticipating that we will run into some contaminated soils while we're doing our underground work on both of those projects. So in anticipation of that, we requested for proposals from, I believe it was 6 different firms, if I remember correctly. We did get 3 proposals, one from Robert E. Lee, one from REI Engineering, and one from TRC Environmental. So we looked over the proposals and tried to concentrate on the hourly rate, given the nature of the work. So when we encounter, hazardous soils, it's very unpredictable. We don't know how many times we're going to run into them or how long or what kind of an effort it is. So given the nature of the work, it's more of a time and materials sort of a contract. So we looked very heavily at the hourly rates and kind of considered the working relationship we've had with the firms in the past. And so given that Robert E. Lee has generally the lowest hourly rates, especially of the employees that would be working on the project, taking that into consideration with the working relationship that we've had with Robert E. Lee. They were on East Grand as well, and we worked with them with that project as well. So given those factors, their responsiveness to our needs in the past and the rates that they're proposing for this project, we are asking for approval of this firm, Robert E. Lee, for what we're anticipating to be no more than $20,000. So the $20,000 is kind of our estimate given the size and scope of the project.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions. Matt?
Nick, what's the, why are we thinking there's hazardous waste, or you already know the hazardous waste is there?
Yeah, so we did soil borings. We were required to do soil borings with our West Jackson project. And so we kind of tried to zone in on where the contamination was. So they had to do field studies and reports and whatnot to determine what's out there, where it is. And so we did that for West Jackson Street. And then on 9th Avenue, which is just a city project, we're required to, when we're applying for water main extensions, to look into what kind of contamination we're going to run into, and found out that we actually have a very good chance of running into some soil contamination on the south end of that project as well. So we're aware that it's there, but we're not sure when and exactly where we're going to run into it. So.
Oh, like where it comes from, or is it just?
So a lot of it is old gas stations leaking underground storage tanks, stuff of that nature.
Okay.
So.
Paul?
The stuff on 9th Avenue probably was identified when they did West Grand Avenue 16 years ago. You know, like on where that gazebo is, obviously there was Bender Oil there at one time in that gas station, and there was some pretty extensive, if I remember correctly from my previous position at the city, that was a hot zone pretty much from there all the way to where 10th Avenue is.
Jake?
So when you come across the environmental studies like this, or potentially the removal of it, where in the financing process are we at for this, or where's that going to come from? Is this going to be included in the whole project when it comes through, or is this going to be separate?
So because we'd be running into it while we're putting in water main or sanitary sewer, it would come from those utilities that would end up paying for it.
So then this wouldn't come out of like our city budget at all, and is this typical of? Okay.
Anyone else? Hearing none, what are committee's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve hiring Robert E. Lee for environmental services up to the dollar amount of $20,000.
I'll second. Is there any other discussion? Patrick, you got anything?
No.
Okay, we'll go on to vote. All in favor, respond with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, moving on. Item number 4, review the municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4 annual report. Nick?
So with this, this is more an update for the committee. We're not looking for any action on anything. It's just for everybody's information. But every year we have to turn this in to the DNR at the end of March and kind of report to them on some of the requirements that they require of us regarding stormwater. So just kind of going through the basics of it. So a big part of the program is education and outreach. So the city is involved with the North Central Wisconsin Stormwater Coalition. So its main goals are to educate the public and get them involved and that sort of thing. So we work with the coalition on that. And another one of the things that we're required to do is look at illicit discharge detection and elimination. So we'll go through the city, look at our outfalls with our storm sewer, and do testing and looking for any abnormal illicit chemicals or anything coming out of the storm sewers. So that's part of our program as well that we're required to report to DNR on. We monitor construction, so any private development, during construction, making sure that the right erosion controls are in place, and that there's no off-site sedimentation. That's part of our program as well. We do plan review, so any developments in town, we're looking at the plans, making sure they conform to city ordinance, which is, again, it goes hand in hand with the state code on stormwater controls. We also look at some of our own maintenance and storage areas and make sure that we're not, with any of our stormwater runoff, that there's no pollution or anything happening with any of those areas. So we report to the DNR on that. We have a model where we look at the amount of suspended solids that are coming off our stormwater runoff. So we have to update that. We work with a consultant on that to make sure our models are up to date and that we're in conformance with DNR code. And then lastly, our storm sewer map, which gets updated with all our new construction projects. So we have to maintain that as well. But we do this every year, just, reporting to the DNR, making sure that we're in compliance, and that's, I guess that's pretty much it. So again, this was nothing that we look for action on, just more for everybody's information, and wanted to get that report out if people were interested.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, which is review the referral list. Nick, anything to update with the current referrals?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we're crossing anything off or adding anything that I'm aware of.
Are there any new referrals? Okay, on to our last agenda item. Item 6 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor, respond with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Have a good evening, anyone.